There's nothing like league. And this is the Betfred Super League. No! Got me here. It took a big chunk out of me. Bleeding. It's bleeding. Oh no, it's bleeding. The thing just ripped my ear off. What do you think?
Hello again, and welcome along to another edition of Eddie and Stevo, the podcast. Here most weeks of the rugby league season with the support of our friends at Betfred. Coming up, another in our series of one-on-one interviews, and this time having talked to players, coaches, commentators and pundits. Now the spotlight falls on the men in the middle. The merry whistleblowers, as Stevo used to call them when we were behind the microphone. Without the referee, quite simply, there would be no game for us to watch and enjoy. But why do they do it? Why do they sign up for sometimes the cruelest assessment of their performances week in, week out from all sides of the game? Well, one of the best merry whistleblowers we have ever had was Phil Bentham. He comes from Lee. He refereed 7 major finals, a Four Nations final, was a video referee countless times during his 13-year career. He was even acting head of referees at one stage. But now he's out of the game and currently has a leading role with the Premier League as coach in the VAR, video referee department. Phil, thanks very much for taking the time out to talk to me. It's great to see you as well. How did that major transition come about from the oval ball to the round ball?
Well, obviously I made the decision to move on from rugby league just for the reason of going to try and do something different. I've been in rugby league for many years, and an opportunity was offered to me to come and work with the VARs, really in terms of the way they communicate the decisions in preparation for, in the future, maybe going live on TV, and certainly letting some of that communication be heard by clubs and by the general public. So obviously rugby league, we've been doing that since probably the 1996, I think it was.
Since day one.
Paris, where, we've always been recorded. And then I think it was probably around 2014, we actually went live on TV as video referees. And obviously some of the guys at football had heard what we do and, they wanted to see whether or not I could come in and help out the football guys.
Isn't it remarkable that people who work in rugby league and who do great work, great jobs, it takes other people to recognise the contributions that you all make?
Yeah, I mean, we set the standard in terms of, you look at technology in sport now, we were the first people to ever do it in rugby league, all those years ago. So, yeah, I mean, it's no surprise that they come to us with all our experience. And it's just something that now, and I know there's a new deal come, and we need now to progress it in rugby league. To get it on every game in Super League will be massive for the sport. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that pans out next year.
Well, they're going to need some people. Are you up for a return?
I think those days might have gone, Eddie. I
don't blame you.
Yeah, I'm quite happy coaching and helping other people.
I don't blame you at all. We think that there is pressure in rugby league, and there is, but it's nothing compared to the referees that you are coaching now for the VAR in football. There are weekly programmes on Sky Television, for instance, where every decision is taken down frame by frame by frame. They're over-analysed, aren't they? Over-assessed, don't you think?
Yeah, I think with the size of the sport, people need to know how the VARs and referees have got to the decisions. I think it's important. I think it's important that people understand, because that understanding of how you've got to a decision, some people then will believe the decision a little bit more, or at least they can accept it. Just the fact that they've heard exactly why you're making the decision, they can accept it more. Where obviously being closed before and not hearing anything, people make up their own minds So it's always better coming from the mouth of the referees and the VARs.
Absolutely, it is. And as you say, we've done that now for years and years in rugby league. Let's talk about your career, because what was it? You were a referee from 2004 onwards. So you've never really known anything other than video referee system. I want to ask you a very basic question. Why on earth did you decide to become a referee?
Well, I watched rugby league from being, as long as I can remember, from before primary school. I was taken to rugby league matches with my parents. Played a little bit at school and different things. Wasn't particularly good. Was okay, but not particularly good. Certainly was never going to be a professional. I played other sports, tennis and different things, and then watched rugby league and continued to watch rugby league. And I was just stood at Lee one day, and as everybody does, having a pop at the ref. And my dad just said, "Oh, honestly," because my dad never has a go at referees, never has done. He said, "If you can do any better, go and have a go yourself, will you?"
Wow.
And I thought, do you know what? I might have a go at this. And got in touch with rugby league and went from there.
Well, full marks to you for doing that. And I mean, to be fair, it's probably given you everything you've got, certainly everything you've got now, because you were so successful as a man in the middle. As I said before, when you moved, people got on the social media and they have different opinions about different referees and their abilities. But the one thing that came through is, why is it that everybody else can't realise in rugby league what we've got?
Yeah.
It's very tough, and it's a hell of a gig you've got.
It is, and I just think in rugby league sometimes we don't realise how good the people are that are involved. Whether that's coaches, players. I mean, I've stood on that pitch and seen the contact that those players take week in, week out. I have absolutely no idea how they get up. No. I mean, a couple of times I've had contact myself.
I know you have.
Remember.
I'm going to come on to that in a minute.
How those guys get up on a Monday morning and then go and do it all again, I'll never know, because they aren't earning the millions.
No.
So, it's tribute. The whole thing for me is tribute to the players. The way that they conduct themselves and the bravery they show on the field. It's unbelievable in that sport.
It's second to none, it is. And I mean, obviously, everybody has their own opinion about whether a try should have been awarded, whether a try should have not been awarded. The goal's exactly the same now. But you hinted before, and you're right, in the new TV deal, video technology at all 6 games, which has been a long time coming.
Yeah.
It's a good thing, you think?
Oh, 100%. You've got to have that level playing field. The number of times we would get criticised on a Monday morning if we'd been on a game that wasn't on TV, and the coach would say, if that game had been on TV, that decision would have been changed by the video referee and it'd have been a different result. Well, it's going to get rid of that. And they can put into place, they may consider going into captain's challenge territory.
Oh, I think that's awful, don't you?
So
I think that's terrible, don't you?
I think it can work on occasions where, as referees and officials, we miss something that the players just sense and the players just know from being involved in the game. Where I think it comes unstuck is when they make the challenge because they've got one left in the last minute. And you just end up with this last 5 minutes of basically people making a challenge for the sake of it, see if they can get away with something. It would need looking at. But ultimately, the video referee, when it first came in, that was exactly what it was for. It was for checking the tries, the grounding, footing, touch, all those, what I consider to be factual things, rather than subjective, has he run behind his own man, all those kind of things. I mean, you'll probably remember the game, Salford against Wigan, and it was kind of a bit of a perfect storm. Iestyn Harris had moved from Wigan to Salford, and Wigan at the time were playing a lot of the moves where they basically have an option runner running behind, so they could either hit the lead or they could hit the option runner. And Wigan had got it really, really good under Michael Maguire and then through Sean Wayne. And Iestyn Harris tried to introduce it at Salford. I think Wigan was his first game. So he tried to introduce this pattern of play within the week. Salford's timing was absolutely horrendous. So they were catching the ball on the wrong side, running behind their own man. I think I ended up going to the video ref sort of 7 or 8 times. You were going apoplectic about, what's he checking now?
I'm sorry, I apologise.
But, I mean, once I'd been once and checked one...
You had to go.
I had to keep going because they just weren't running these lines right at all. And then, because I was checking the Salford ones, I felt obliged to check the Wigan ones. And we ended up, it was absolute chaos. And like trying to get to my car afterwards was fun.
I bet it
shall
was.
we say.
Things have evolved in video refereeing and in the game itself, you know. You mentioned the captain's challenge. Do you think that the on-field referee sending up his opinion to the video referee helps or hinders? Because there's no wriggle room then. There's no wriggle room whatsoever. If the video referee thinks, I don't think that is a try, but he's given it, I've got to give it. Yeah,
because he's looking then for sufficient evidence to overturn that call, is the terminology they use. But I quite like, and obviously it's based on technology and whether it works well enough or not. I quite like the rugby union model, where you've got 2 experts looking at a screen. One's on the field, who's got the feel of the game. You've got the guy in the booth who's got the replays, who can put those on, and the decision lies with the referee, but there's a discussion between 2 professionals. And I think that's a really, really good way forward. It could be something that they look at in rugby league. You know, when we're talking about every game having it, it will be a level playing field, and it might be a good way forward. Because there's a number of times where the video referee has not intervened in a game where I've been involved on the field, and I felt if I'd have been able to see that on the screen and I'd have been able to make a judgment on it, I'd have corrected my own judgment, which, you know, the TMO approach in rugby union allows the referee to do. So it keeps the referee in total control of his match, which I think is a better way forward.
Yeah, good idea. Yeah, good thought. Did you ever get one wrong? Do you ever look back, you make your decision, and then you replay it again, oh, geez, I got that wrong?
Yes, I mean, some absolutely horrendous ones.
You're very honest.
Oh, God. Well, you get home, and you kind of know, and you put the footage on, and you think, yeah, you know, I knew exactly I got that wrong. That's
on the field. What about in the booth?
The same. Yeah, you just realise that, hang on a minute, I've just gone the wrong way with that. I've gone the wrong way. You know, why am I overthinking it? Which is, or why have I gone into a tunnel and looking at that and I've missed the obvious bit of the decision on the side?
So listen, we're all fallible.
Yeah, I know.
It happens, doesn't it?
It does. It does. But, you know, obviously when it's you and you're going home with that feeling in the pit of your stomach because you've changed the outcome of a game, it's not a nice place.
I bet it isn't.
It's not a nice place.
And the review on a Monday morning wouldn't be very pleasant either, probably.
No, that's right. So if you've been on the Thursday night game and then you've got to wait for Monday morning.
You haven't slept for 3 nights.
No, that's right. That's right. It's not an ideal scenario.
Well, let's look at your career in some detail because, you know, I've used the word illustrious, and it has been illustrious because you've been involved in some massive occasions. What was your finest moment, do you think, with the whistle in your hand?
I think my best ever performance was on the Four Nations final, and I've tried to work out why I would need to get to New Zealand, Australia in New Zealand to have my best game ever, and it was because I wasn't striving for reaching any further. I'd reached the pinnacle that was where I wanted to be. So Challenge Cup final was great, grand final great, but to referee an international final in that year, that was the number 1 game at the end of the year. So I was just so relaxed because I wasn't striving for the next game. It was all about, that was the end of the season. I could just go out and I just chatted to the players, got on really well with them, got 2 fantastic teams who wanted to play, and just let the game go.
Is that the one where Tim Sheens had a pop afterwards and got fined?
No.
Is that a different one?
Yeah, no, he was right on that one, to be fair to him, yeah. That was the one at Warrington.
Oh, was it? Yeah. Right, okay.
So that was...
I know it was on New Zealand, Australia, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was 2011. This was the 2014 Four Nations final in New Zealand, which disallowed an Australia try in the last minute to equal the game. But it was just everything about it. Probably the fact that you were away in New Zealand.
Yeah, yeah.
You got the whole thing of a New Zealand crowd, and they beat Australia. So you'd got all that added into it. But in terms of the way I refereed it, was just, I've never felt as easy on a rugby field, which is bizarre because you think that's probably going to be the most nervous one.
I would have thought so, yeah, because it's such a massive game and you're 12,000 miles away from home. But then again, maybe it's the psyche of what happens down under. Maybe they're a bit more tolerant of referees. I'm talking about the spectators now, not the coaches and the players.
Yeah, it's
maybe
more about the event.
And the event,
You know, you don't hear the fans shouting forward. You know,
get them on side.
You just don't get that in Australia. No, I mean, presumably they're shouting other things, but you just don't get that constant kind of, you know, we're being done over by the referee.
And generally they're a lot further away than they are in this country, aren't they? The supporters are way back.
That's right. Well, this was actually on the cricket pitch.
There you go.
In Wellington.
There you go.
So
no wonder you were relaxed.
Yeah, exactly. But I think that was probably the one. But I mean, you know, over here I did the £1 million game with Salford beating Hull KR with the drop goal. I mean, that was unbelievable. I mean, Salford were out of it with 2 minutes to go and scored 2 tries in the last 2 minutes.
Yes, I remember.
I mean, to be involved in that game and to see the emotion of the Hull KR players after, where there's literally, you know, the livelihoods were being taken from them within 2 minutes of a season. So it was horrible to see the aftermath of that around the Hull KR players. But just so dramatic, and obviously Marwan running around, and it was very, 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 very dramatic.
It was.
It was good.
You had some great moments. Grand final referee 2011, 2014, video referee at Old Trafford, countless times. 2011 must have been a big year because you did both, didn't you? You did the Challenge Cup final, and you did the Grand Final in the 1 year.
Yes,
so both gigs.
Yeah, it's kind of.
I'm amazed you've not said that's your pinnacle. To do the 2 major finals. I understand the relaxation of being abroad, but fantastic you did both.
Yeah, that was kind of obviously my breakthrough year as well. It was my first final, was the Challenge Cup final. And then, you know, to back it up, I mean, really, you're in form in August to get the Challenge Cup final. So if you can put 6 weeks together, you're still going to be the man in form. And fortunately that year, you know, I managed to do that.
It was a great rivalry between the referees. As well,
yeah.
You know, you're pushing and shoving each other to try and get these major events.
Absolutely, it was a really, really tough dynamic actually, because you had to go and work and train with these guys, but where players are all aiming for one goal, which is for all of them to win, we effectively could only have one person win, which is the person picked for the final. So we had this team dynamic of working together to try and improve as a group. But ultimately, only one of you is going to come out best. So it was tricky at times, you know, and we've had many an argument in reviews, you know, where one referee's saying, "Well, I wouldn't have done that," and you're saying, "Well, you know, that's why I'm getting the big games because you wouldn't have done it." So you can imagine what it was like.
I can.
So and there's some strong characters in there.
Yes, there are, and there were. I'm sure there were. Let's talk about the 2014 Grand Final.
Yeah.
The only man to produce the red card for Ben Flower. Now, look, that, I'm sure, was one of the easiest decisions you've ever had to make because it was a shocking incident.
Yeah.
Ben hitting Lance O'Hire on the deck. And I think I remember my words that night. I said, I think Ben Flower's Grand Final is going to be over.
That's right.
And he was. It was gone.
It was. And part of my reflection on that was... it was a terrible moment for both Lance and for Ben. So that's the first thing I went to. And so being the analytical, critical person I am, is could I have avoided it? Is there anything I could have done in that first 2 minutes of that game to avoid those two players ending up in that situation? And I look back on it and I penalised on the second tackle. I think it was Mossy Massot, went high, he missed, but I penalised it to try and bring it down a little bit.
Because the emotion's up there, isn't it, in the early parts of a grand final? On the ceiling, on the roof.
Wigan Saints, I mean, honestly, I've never seen anything like it in the dressing rooms before. Couldn't get the Wigan captain out because they were you could hear Sean Wayne, you know, talking to him, and I couldn't get the Wigan captain out. He wouldn't let him come out because they hadn't done the pre-match to the right level. So I had to send the Saints captain back into the dressing room. So I'll come and get you when the Wigan captain will come out.
Wow.
We ended up getting the match commissioner, and the Wigan players had obviously been drilled up to a certain level of arousal, ready to go out for this final. And I think with Ben, it probably just boiled over. It just boiled over in that early part. I think if he'd got through 5 minutes, he'd have been all right.
Yes.
But if I could have avoided that, there's no pride whatsoever in producing a red card after 2 minutes from a referee's point of view, but I had to do it.
I was going to say, you were backed into a corner. There was yellow card would have been a ridiculous decision. He chinned him twice when he was lying on the floor.
There's nothing else I could have done.
No.
But, I look in the build-up, is there something, that I could have done? Could I have gone next to Ben Flower if I'd sensed that, he was a little bit on edge?
He might have chinned you. If you went that close to him, you never know.
No,
honestly.
No, it was...
No, I understand. You won't take any pride from that, but you're in the history books. The only man so far to produce a red card at Old Trafford,
Yeah.
And there was one, wasn't there, at Wembley for years and years and years when Sid Hines got sent off.
That's right, yeah. That was against the mighty Lee.
Yeah, indeed so. Indeed. What do you think about Lee this year? I mean, I know none of us was all supposed to be totally uncommitted, but you're a Lee lad.
Yeah.
I live in Warrington, but I'm not a Warrington fan. I don't really have a team.
Right.
I just love the game. You're a Lee lad. You're a Lee fan.
Yeah.
What do you think about 2023? I mean, good heavens above.
I mean, it's absolutely unbelievable. It's, the rebrand, people, is that going to work? It's worked.
Hasn't it just?
There's people, you go out for a coffee in Lee, and there's people walking around with leopard skin caps on,
Well, whoever did the leopard skin outfits for Wembley, they must be multi-millionaires now because everyone had them on.
I know. Honestly, the whole build-up to the Challenge Cup final, and obviously all my family went. It was the first day of the Premier League.
I was going to say,
so I couldn't go.
How did you cope with that?
Well, the last went in 1971, and my mum missed the final because she was having pregnancy complications with me. So that's how long ago it was. And then I've waited all those years, praying as a teenager, can Lee get to the final? And they lost in the quarter-final in the 80s. And then the year they get there is first day of the Premier League, so I was committed to work.
But you enjoyed the result. You enjoyed the homecoming the next day, I bet.
I did. Good on you. I went to the homecoming with my dad the day after, which was great.
Good stuff. Well, look, Wembley, Old Trafford, international matches. As a commentator, they always tell me to remain completely neutral, which is very difficult. I must confess, when Great Britain or England took on Australia, it was always very difficult for me to do that because I love to see the Aussies get beaten by us. Be honest, has there ever been a time when you've thought, Australia, you won a penalty? No chance.
Do you know, I can honestly say no.
Good lad.
Because what I did when I went on the field was, it was always Reds against Blues or Greens against Blacks. Right. If it was Australia, New Zealand, it wasn't about because if you get distracted by that, you're not going to do your job properly. And come Monday in the review, nobody's going to appreciate the fact that you've missed a penalty to Australia. All it means is you're going to miss the next game.
Yes.
So it affects your own career. So, the first two Challenge Cup finals that I did, Wigan won both. And obviously being a Lee lad, I go out in Lee in the pubs and like, Phil, surely you could have found something. But, you're there to do a job and, you take any emotions, thoughts away.
You've got to.
I think that's the case with every referee. So when I see people talking about, they favour this team or that team, I've never met one referee where I think that.
No, it's nonsense. Absolute nonsense. But every time your team is beaten, it's not because Jimmy or John or Fred has dropped the ball or missed a tackle.
No.
It's because you've made the wrong decision.
Yeah, and, referees do make mistakes, and sometimes, the odd occasions, the mistakes will change the outcome of the game.
Yeah, but so are players dropping the ball.
Of course they do. There's lots of errors out there. I think the only thing with that is that a player dropping a ball or somebody missing a tackle, whatever, is part of the game. The expectation is that the referee doesn't affect the outcome, where players are designed to affect the outcome, aren't they? That's the nature of the game.
I would imagine you wouldn't want to affect the outcome of a game. That's the worst thing ever.
Absolutely.
I'm sure.
I think, we talk sometimes about the referee. If you've not seen the referee, he's had a great game.
Correct.
That's all fine if if you've not got top v bottom, where the bottom team's trying to spoil the whole game, you've got to see the referee. If you don't see the referee, the team at the top is getting absolutely ruined by holding down or whatever it might be. You've got to see the referee in those games.
You have. Did you ever referee England/Great Britain against the Aussies?
No, I did England, New Zealand.
Right. Well, that's not as bad, is it?
No, I didn't.
Against the Kiwis, it's not as bad. It's not as intense as against the Aussies.
I never refereed England, Australia.
Wow.
Which
regret?
It would have been nice. It would have been nice to have that on the CV. But the Australia New Zealand games, to do those, I did them in Australia, I did them in New Zealand, I did them in Warrington.
Fab.
So to do those games, and be on that field with the haka and the Australian national anthem is something special.
It is. Look, injuries play a havoc with players. Gee, they played a havoc with you, didn't they? I remember we were at Wigan one night and you broke your leg against Hull Kingston Rovers. You tore a hamstring. I think you collided with a player at Widnes and slipped the disc in your back. And that was just about it at the end. Was that the moment you thought, I've had enough of this? The body's telling me now, pack up.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, with the Widnes one at the end, it was medical advice after that incident. They said you can't go back on the field.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, another knock in the back, and obviously you could end up in a wheelchair. So you can't take the risk of being on the field with those 26, 15-stone blokes.
No.
So that was the point where I was forced into retirement. I didn't want to, but it was forced into retirement. But the time that I broke my leg at Wigan, it was a good story actually, because your mate Stevo. So I'm lying in the hospital bed in Wigan with waiting for the consultant to come and have a look, because it was dislocated as well as broken.
Oh my goodness!
Anyway, I see this little face appear at the curtain, where you're waiting in the hospital. It's this little face. Thinking, what? I'm sure that was Stevo. So I just shout, Stevo? So you do, it is you. I said, I can't believe you've come on your way home from the match, because he'd obviously been commentating, on your way back to Dewsbury. And he said, honestly, no. He said, I just wanted to make sure it was definitely broken. That was his line, which was absolutely brilliant. Well, but, I mean, fair play to the bloke. It was probably 11:30 at night.
Yeah.
And he popped in just to make sure I was all right.
Oh, good on him. Good on him. Well, he always says he hates... As a hooker, he says it time and time again on this. As a hooker, I hated them. I hated referees. But, I mean, I think that's all a bit of, pie in the sky.
He did really. When you got him away from the microphone, and probably in his playing days away from the pitch, he was always good for a chat.
He was a fierce competitor as a player, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Fierce competitor he was. So, as I say, you finally packed up after Widnes on medical advice. So then you went into coaching the referees.
Yeah, really
passing
enjoyed
on
it.
all those years and years of experience.
Yeah, really enjoyed it. See some of the guys, and obviously you still see them now. I was Liam Moore's coach when he was in the academy. That's whilst I was still on field, I was the academy coach.
Right.
So to see Liam come through, and then I coached him in Super League and appointed him to his first Challenge Cup final when I was in charge, which was a brilliant moment. And same with Chris Kendall, appointed Chris to his first grand final. So it was a lovely period, because I got the end of the season to be in charge, so I got to make all the nice appointments.
All the big decisions were yours. Wow.
So that was nice. But you've also got the other side of the coin, which is you've got to phone the person who's not got the final, who's expecting it, who perhaps did the other semi-final. So, yeah, not an easy job, but great in terms of, seeing the guys progress onto those big stages.
And when they get just about everything right, you feel it's a feather in the cap as well.
Absolutely.
Good.
And they both refereed the finals really well, which was nice, because that's the worst place to be. You don't want to reach it, because you'll never ever forget a final where you make a big error. So yeah, it was really good, the coaching job. I enjoyed it.
And now you're coaching the VAR in football. Just one final point before I let you go. Social media does a lot of very good work, we know that. But just lately, Darryl Powell, Andy Last, when they lost their coaching positions, and more recently than that now, Marcus Griffiths has been absolutely battered on social media with vicious and pernicious opinions
Yeah.
and homophobic
Yeah.
opinions. This, Phil, has got to stop, hasn't it? It's got to stop.
Yeah, we've got to find a way. You know, we're in 2023 now. There's people opening social media accounts with no traceability whatsoever, and you know, you've got Marcus. We all took abuse on social media, but when it's about your person, about who you are, that's completely different to talking about a decision. And you know, for Marcus to have been through what he's been through, it's just awful. And you know, something's got to be done about registering people on online platforms so that we know who's talking.
Because what they're doing is criminal charge.
They're just hiding. Yeah, but they can just hide away.
They can. Behind
away.
What do they call it? A handle. Is that what they called it?
Yeah,
I'm not very good at this.
No, I'm not either. I never went on it for that exact reason.
No.
I didn't want to read it.
No, awful. It really is awful. Can anything be done, do you think? I suggested the other week, just close them down. Just close these social media outlets down. But I don't suppose that's ever going to happen.
No, because like you said before, that you know there are so many benefits to it. You know that, in fact, even the role that I've got now, you know, I saw a role advertised at the Premier League through social media that
Wow.
maybe I wouldn't have seen. I applied for that and then got kind of moved across into the VAR side. So you know, there's really good bits of it that we've got to remember. But, you know, there's got to be a way of sorting out, you know, the people that are putting this stuff on.
Definitely. Well, look, keep doing what you're doing and enjoy every minute of it. And as a dyed-in-the-wool Liverpool fan, no offsides decision in 2023, please, against us. Is that a possibility?
Offside decisions are factual, Edward. So
only my mother calls me Edward.
the obviously the offsides, the factual decisions are all the ones that are nice and easy. It's the subjective ones. Has he been tripped? How easily has he gone down? They're the ones that are really difficult for the VARs.
Well, they are, because the players go down in football, and you know, I am an avid football fan. I'm an avid rugby league fan these days as well. They go down in football like they've been poleaxed, and they've been hardly touched.
Yeah, and you know,
and it's difficult for you guys to judge on that.
It's very difficult, because if you're sprinting at full tilt and somebody catches you, that could be enough to send you down. But what they've got to judge is the contact enough for that player to go down the way that he goes down? And it's very, very difficult, which is why all we ever emphasise with the referees is it begins on the field. Get the decision on the field, and the VAR is just there to back you up if you've made a clear and obvious error, rather than relying on the VAR. Go out and referee, and you know, the best referees, there's only odd times that the VAR needs to get involved, because they've refereed the game and they've done it for the full 90 minutes or a little bit longer as it is now. But yeah, you know, it all starts on the field.
It does. Well, it's been fascinating, Phil, and can I say, you know, listening to you today, I hope our podcasters have had as much pleasure listening to you and finding out a bit more about the background as well. Thank you very much for all your time. It really is appreciated, really is.
No problem, enjoyed it. Thanks,
Good
Eddie.
stuff. Thanks, Phil.
Cheers.
So there we are. Until the next time, from this special edition of Eddie and Stevo, the podcast, it's goodbye.